Gentlemen, I have a very simple philosophy. What you shove up your ass is your own business.
Captain.
Shut up. Now, it's not my style to get involved in the personal lives of my firemen. And if sometimes I've given you the impression that I'm your friend, I apologize.
A Canadian kid with a head full of ghosts. Fasten your seatbelts, movie buffs, because we're blasting off on a whirlwind tour through the life and career of Dan Aykroyd, a comedic force of nature who deserves a standing ovation from the cinematic cosmos. Forget your typical Hollywood origin stories. This, my friends, is a saga seasoned with a dash of the bizarre, overflowing with enough comedic talent to light up the spookiest corner of a haunted mansion. Born under the dancing aurora borealis of Canada, young Dan wasn't your average kid. While other children dreamt of superheroes and baseball cards, Dan's imagination crackled with a different kind of energy. The unseen world, the realm of ghosts and ghouls, thrummed beneath his skin, a constant undercurrent in his curious mind. This fascination, some might say borderline obsession, with the paranormal would become the foundation upon which he'd build his comedic castle, a monument to laughter unlike any other. Unlike the clean-cut, sports-obsessed kids on TV, Dan was an outlier. A quirky kid with a head full of offbeat characters and a vocabulary that could trip up a college professor. School wasn't exactly his jam, but that didn't mean he wasn't learning. He devoured books on mythology and parapsychology, his insatiable curiosity a constant companion. This unique blend of the strange and the scholarly would later become his comedic trademark, a secret sauce that would have audiences howling with laughter 1 minute and pondering the mysteries of the universe the next. But the confines of a small Canadian town couldn't contain Dan's burgeoning comedic talent for long. He craved a stage, a platform to unleash the whirlwind of characters brewing within him. So, with a mischievous glint in his eye and a suitcase overflowing with offbeat ideas, he set his sights on the bright lights of Toronto's Second City, a legendary comedy troupe that had birthed comedic giants like John Candy and Gilda Radner. Second City was a pressure cooker, a crucible that pushed aspiring comedians to their limits. It was a boot camp for comedic gladiators, and Dan, with his boundless energy and offbeat wit, thrived in this electrifying environment. He honed his skills, sharpened his characters, and learned the art of comedic timing with the precision of a Swiss watch. This baptism by laughter would prepare him for the ultimate comedic battlefield, Saturday Night Live. Taking New York by storm, the Coneheads and the birth of the Blues Brothers. The year was 1975, and the world of comedy was about to be forever changed. A new show, a risky experiment called Saturday Night Live, was taking its first shaky steps onto the national stage. Little did anyone know, this late-night laugh riot would become a cultural phenomenon, and a young Canadian named Dan Aykroyd would be at the heart of it all. Armed with a briefcase full of offbeat characters and a seemingly endless supply of comedic energy, Dan stormed the SNL stage. He wasn't your typical comedic foil. He was pointy-headed aliens, neurotic nerds, and larger-than-life personalities that seemed to leap straight out of a fever dream. His impressions were legendary, his comedic timing impeccable, and his commitment to the bit absolute. One of his most inspired creations was the Coneheads, a bizarre family of pointy-headed extraterrestrials who spoke in a nasally monotone and hailed from the planet Remulac. These weren't just funny costumes and silly voices. Dan imbued the Coneheads with a strange pathos, a commentary on conformity and the absurdity of social norms. Audiences roared with laughter, but beneath the surface, there was a hint of something deeper, a touch of Aykroyd's signature quirkiness that resonated with viewers. But Dan wasn't a one-trick pony. He craved more than just sketches. He craved a signature act, a comedic duo that would leave an indelible mark on pop culture history.
For whatever reasons, Ray, call it fate, call it luck, call it karma. I believe that everything happens for a reason. I believe that we were destined to get thrown out of this dump.
For what purpose?
To go into business for ourselves.
Enter John Belushi, a comedic force of nature with a booming voice and an infectious energy that perfectly complemented Dan's offbeat brilliance. Together, they became the Blues Brothers, Jake and Elwood, a pair of shades-wearing, rhythm and blues-loving siblings on a mission from God, or at least, that's what they claimed. The Blues Brothers were an instant sensation. Their high-octane performances, fueled by Belushi's raw energy and Aykroyd's comedic deadpan, were a shot of adrenaline straight into the heart of SNL. They tore through the stage with a full horn section in tow, belting out classic blues tunes with a fervor that had audiences jumping out of their seats. But the Blues Brothers were more than just a musical act. They were a cultural touchstone, a symbol of cool that transcended generations. From their signature fedoras to their Ray-Ban sunglasses, they became fashion icons. Their music, a blend of blues, soul, and R&B, introduced a whole new generation to the genre. Boston makes him feel good, Ghostbusters, and the legacy of an underrated genius. The world of Saturday Night Live was a wild ride for Dan Aykroyd, a whirlwind of late-night laughs and unforgettable characters. But Dan, ever the visionary, craved a bigger canvas, a chance to tell stories that stretched beyond the confines of a sketch comedy show. Enter the idea that would solidify his place in cinematic history, Ghostbusters. It wasn't an easy sell. The concept, a team of eccentric scientists battling ghosts in New York City, was met with skepticism by Hollywood studios. Who wants a comedy about ghosts, they scoffed. But Dan, fueled by his lifelong fascination with the paranormal and his unwavering belief in the project's potential, wouldn't be deterred. He enlisted the writing talents of Harold Ramis, the comedic genius of Bill Murray, and together, they assembled a team of paranormal exterminators unlike any other. Ghostbusters wasn't just a movie. It was a cultural explosion. It was proton packs strapped to backpacks, a theme song that burrowed into your brain like a catchy earworm, and a legion of fans screaming, "Who you gonna call?" The special effects were groundbreaking, the humor spot on, and the chemistry between the cast was pure comedic gold. Sure, there were bumps along the road. Creative differences flared. Bill Murray's notoriously independent personality clashed with the demands of a big-budget production, and tensions simmered on set. But through it all, Dan remained the driving force, the one who believed in the project with unwavering conviction. The success of Ghostbusters was undeniable. It smashed box office records, spawned a mountain of merchandise, and cemented Dan Aykroyd's place in Hollywood history. But here's the thing, folks, Dan wasn't just a comedic goofball in a jumpsuit. He was, and still is, a multifaceted talent. He delivered Oscar-worthy performances in dramatic roles like Driving Miss Daisy, showcased his comedic versatility in films like Trading Places and Dragnet, and even dabbled in voice acting, bringing iconic characters like the Coneheads to life on the big screen. Through the decades, Dan Aykroyd has continued to churn out projects, defying expectations and showcasing his remarkable talent. But somewhere along the way, the narrative shifted. He became known primarily for Ghostbusters, his other achievements overshadowed by the sheer force of that franchise. But don't be fooled. Dan Aykroyd is an acting chameleon, a comedic masterclass in character creation, and a writer with a mind that could crack Da Vinci's Code. So, the next time you hear Dan Aykroyd's name, don't just think Ghostbusters. Although, let's be honest, that's pretty darn awesome. Think of the man who dared to believe in ghosts and proton packs, who brought iconic characters to life on stage and screen, and who left us with a legacy of laughter and wonder that continues to electrify audiences to this day. Dan Aykroyd is an underrated genius, a comedic legend who deserves a place on the pantheon of Hollywood greats. And who knows, maybe with a little bit of luck and a lot of proton pack power, we'll see him back on the big screen, busting ghosts and reminding us all why we fell in love with him in the first place.